Hey guys, Jesse here, your NBA Vibe Navigator. I'm joined as always by my co host and NBA analyst, Mickey Swish. Say hello, Mickey.
Hello, Orb fans.
This is Dishing and Swishing. We are off the blogs. This podcast is presented by your favorite data driven gambling model, Orb Analytics Limited. Check them out at orbanalytics.substack.com. This will be a weekly podcast where we cover all things NBA, your go to for hot takes, sharp bets, and nothing but net insights with myself, Jesse, and Mickey Swish. With that being said, let me dish it to Mickey with what's coming on today's pod.
On today's episode, we take a break from stories and headlines and we give you all of our season picks, the good stuff, from individual players' awards to team over and unders to finals winners. The NBA season starts, and here are our picks for how we think it's going to go. Our music is brought to you by Soft Cheese, not the hard stuff, the soft stuff. Give them a listen whenever and wherever you find your music. Please enjoy this podcast as Jesse, the Vibe Navigator, and I pick our picks. Let's get into it.
Ronnie James was a minus 37 in his last preseason game, Mickey.
Minus
Minus
37.
minus 37.
But he was the 17th pick and he did so well last year. We needed him on the team.
I
Minus
feel like
37. How could it
he's the
be?
guy. I feel like he's the guy in the office that got hired by his uncle. Like, do you think the other people do other Lakers like him? Like, what do they talk? Like, is it the elephant in the room that this guy shouldn't be there? Because the first time they ever played him significant minutes, they got smoked. And it's kind of gross to watch. And I almost feel bad for him, but then I remember he's a multimillionaire and hasn't done anything. Um, so he's giving me Nepo baby vibes already. Do you think he plays opening night?
Opening night might be too on the nose, but I do feel like, to answer your first question in that soliloquy, that the players kind of have to like him because if they don't, they will no longer be Los Angeles Laker players.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they kind of have to.
yeah. That's fair. I love the first preseason game when they played on the court together for the first time. LeBron like went out of his way to guard the point guard so that they would stand next to each other, like for no reason. Like I haven't seen LeBron do like a full court press maybe ever, and he just
Right.
wanted that side by side photo. It's just I like LeBron. I respect LeBron. It's just a lot of orchestration for me, and I'm starting to And as a Celtics fan, I'm happy to hate on any Lakers shit. But good luck to him. I hope they experience nothing but disappointment. Mickey, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I am so ready for tomorrow night. Season begins. Looking forward to a beautiful season here on our pod. Looking forward to watching and talking about it weekly. Should be great.
We got games tomorrow.
The official ones, these ones count. They
We
mean
got
something.
real games. For I don't know when this is going up, so for those of you who are listening, we were recording this on the Monday before the Tuesday opener. We got the Celtics hosting their ring night against the New York Knicks, and we have the Timberwolves at the Los Angeles Lakers. I am very excited.
As
Um,
you should be.
it's been a little bit since our last pod, Mickey. I've been in the Vibe calibration station. I've been sitting on it. I've been percolating. I got some picks ready to go. I'm gonna dole some out throughout this podcast. Um, I think Mickey, we should explain how we're gonna do this now that the real season is starting. I'm obviously, I like money. I'm gonna be leaning into the gambling side of things. I'm gonna be making weekly picks. I have some future picks for you guys. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk about a lot of odds. We're gonna talk a lot of future bets. We're gonna talk a lot about different awards, different win totals. I'm gonna make it very clear to you what my official picks are, and which picks are just I'm gonna have some leans, but don't hold me to them, and we'll make it very clear what those official picks are. Um, Mickey, I think you also have some predictions, but one of us has to retain some journalistic integrity. So I'm very interested in what you have to say and what your leans are. I'm sure our 12 listeners are interested in what your leans are. Um, So we're going to get into that, but we're not going to hold you to the gambling standards. No odds, no units, nothing like that. No funny business. Just who do you like and who don't you like? Does that sound good, Mickey?
Sounds great. I love what we got going on here. You're going to make your picks with a little bit more of an official twinge to yours, as they're tied to obviously some odds. Mine will be just kind of my opinion, my gut, kind of what I'm foreseeing, not really paying attention to too much about predictions tied to odds from the various sportsbook that we have. So as mentioned, Mr. Vibes and I, we're gonna track these. We're gonna write these down. We're gonna get them on the record. You guys are gonna hear it here first, and over the course of the season, we'll be able to reflect and take a look back at our picks. We can revel in our glory or make fun of each other for dumbassery. It will be only time before we figure out how that goes. So it'll be a fun way to hold each other accountable and see how this goes.
I'm feeling good, Mickey. As I was calibrating said vibes, I feel really good about my picks. So I'm sure nothing's gonna go wrong there. I don't know how you feel, but we'll get to that. We got a lot to touch on, Mickey. So I feel like we should hop in.
Let's get
I
after it.
think the first set, in terms of how I look at the futures, is I look at the awards. So there's a few awards to choose from. We're going to go through the major ones. We're not going to touch on some of the weirder ones, although we might touch on one of the weird ones. I think we start with Rookie of the Year. What do you think, Mickey?
Let's get it. Rookie of the year.
Mickey, who do you think the favorite is for Rookie of the Year?
I don't want to say Zach Edey, but I feel like it might be Zach Edey.
You are correct, sir. According to our friends at FanDuel, Zach Edey is a plus 290 for Rookie of the
Oh
Year.
boy.
Plus 290. And we've already, I know we discussed, I know you're a hater. I've seen some stuff that looks pretty frisky from Mr. Zach Edey. Some post ups, Mickey. In year 2024 of our Lord, Zach Edey is playing back to the basket, drop step dunking on people with Ja Morant. The Memphis Grizzlies are excited. I have a pick. I'm gonna let you discuss if there's any other leanings, who you like in the Rookie of the Year landscape, and then I'll make my official pick.
Sure. Right off the bat, before I say anything about my pick, as a basketball purist, as a traditionalist, as someone who watches and plays, hearing that anybody, let alone Zach Edey, is doing the old school style basketball from a big
Yeah.
man's perspective, it makes my heart go pitter patter. So that in itself, he maybe gained a point of recognition and respect in my book going into the season. My first pick of the night is Rookie of the Year. Unintentionally, I'm not trying to be biased here. As a Bulls fan, as I've come out and said, I have to go with Matas Buzelis. I have to go with him. My number two pick, I don't want to keep going with number one, number two, but I have to go with the Mr. Kentucky man who's been making a lot of noise with Reed Shepherd. I feel like both what these two guys have in common is in their immediate instances in terms of playing with the Bulls in Houston, they're going to have a lot of opportunity, a lot of time, a lot of being relied upon. I feel like with the Bulls' recent trades that they made and letting someone like DeMar go, Caruso go, a lot of offense is going to be needed right away with with DeMar being gone. Having LaMelo back, having ball distribution back, I feel like that's going to play very well into Montas's game. And on the other side, I feel like Shepard's going to be more relied upon like right away. I don't think he has to really fit into a system like Matas will with the Bulls. I feel like Shepard's going to be like, hey, we need you to put up buckets right away. The only reason why I'm not picking him is because I feel like that's kind of a really big ask from a rookie who isn't as highly regarded as maybe other rookies in previous classes. So I'm going to go with Matas as my Rookie of the Year.
Okay. So you immediately, undermine my claim that we're aspiring towards some journalistic integrity here, and pick your hometown guy as the Rookie of the Year. It's fine. It's fine, Mickey. It's fine. I like Buzelis. His odds are plus 1,200 for Rookie of the Year, so that's some good value there if you like that. I also agree with you. I think there's going to be opportunity for him, especially once they trade Zach LaVine. I think he has a very good chance at, like I call them, the empty buckets brigade, the dudes on just shitty teams that are ready to somebody's got to take the shots, and it might as well be Buzelis and Kobe White, I guess. Reed Shepherd, I actually really like. I think there's a world in which he might be like the best player in this class. I don't love the opportunity on Houston. I think there's a lot of mouths to feed in Houston. I think you got a lot of guys in Houston who like the ball. I think Reed Shepherd actually is pretty unselfish. He's a great shooter. He can kind of plug and play. You can fit him in anywhere. I really like him as a player. He's plus 850. He's actually the third favorite for Rookie of the Year. But neither of those gentlemen are my pick, Mickey. And neither is Mr. Zach Edey. As much as I liked what I saw, I think I think Zach Edey, I think there's a world in which he's more of kind of like a off the bench, 15 to 20 minutes a game kind of guy. I don't know if I have the numbers for it. Mickey, I'm going to Zach here. All I've heard about people is how bad the top of this draft was. Talking about all the French guys. No one was really very excited about this draft. No, everyone's talking about Zach Edey. And I'm, like I said, I'm in on Edey long term, but it's a little too much hype for me. So the ultimate zag in this, to me, the ultimate zag in this draft class is taking a look at our number one pick overall of the draft, Mr. Zachary Rissache. I think if you ask the average person who was drafted number one this year, they would not know. They'd say Bronny James. Zachary Rissache, he's a 6'9" swing man from France who can shoot the piss out of the ball and 7 foot plus wingspan. And listen, I know the vibes around kind of the international players in the past has been they're soft, they're finesse players. This guy, I've been very impressed with what I've seen in the preseason from him. He's shot very well. He makes plays off the dribble. He finishes in traffic. I think he's could be really good. And I don't think the Hawks are going to be that good. The biggest thing that gets in the way of this pick is Mr. Trae Young, who I don't love, and is still holding the Atlanta Hawks franchise hostage. But Zachary Rissache plus 750. And Mickey, I think it's about that time I get my first official pick out there. This is my first official pick of the NBA Orb podcast. Zachary Rissache, 1 unit we're doing, Mickey. 1 unit plus 750. Zachary Rissache, Rookie of the Year. The number one pick in the draft for a reason. I think he's going to have good numbers. And I think the Hawks are going to stink, but he's going to play a lot and put up some stats. What do you think about Mr. Rissache?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it. The first official pick in Dishing and Swishing, Zachary Rissache by Mr. Vibe Navigator. I think that's a very valuable or valid pick. All right. To be fair, he, obviously he's on my list as anybody who should be thinking and evaluating Rookie of the Year picks. One of the main reasons why I did not select him is something that you actually highlighted, which was the fact that I feel like Trae Young might be getting in the way of that campaign. So obviously I thought about that, but or selecting him as my pick, but I feel like I don't know. I'm worried about Trae. I know we've talked about Trae already on here without the season even beginning, but I'm just a little worried about what Trae Young has to offer to bring the table in the Atlanta Hawks. Now, to beautifully tail off of what you said regarding upholding journalistic integrity here, I do have to say that another reason why I chose Matas was another thing that you had mentioned in terms of just the overall class not having too much hype to begin with, which is why I kind of feel like obviously you have different players and different teams that have different odds to succeed, but I feel like that kind of levels the playing field a little bit and makes it a little bit more possible for kind of like a sneaky dark horse like a guy like Matas to succeed. I think a lot of things are happening with all these different potential candidates like a Reed Shepherd, like a Rissache. Like I feel like this is not a clear-cut race and kind of anybody's to win. I don't think this is as easy as number one pick will be the guy, though I do think that's a legitimate selection.
Yeah, I think in a draft class like this, especially where there is so much kind of, there's a lot of conversation, a lot of arguments over who deserved to be number one. Not really much consensus on any of these guys. I think taking a reach at a dude later in the draft who's going to be on a bad team. No offense to your Chicago Bulls, but he's going to have opportunity to put up some numbers. And typically, Rookie of the Year, it's not like the most well thought out award. It's pretty much just whoever scores the most points get the award. They don't really take into account the other parts of a basketball player. So it's typically if you lead rookies in scoring, you're going to win the Rookie of the Year. So I think Buzelis definitely has a chance to do so. I don't think Edey will get enough minutes. And I think Rissache, but I like the value of plus 750. I think the talent is there. And I don't think the Hawks are very good. Okay, I think we should move on to our next award. What do you think?
I think we should move on.
Defensive Player of the Year. I have a lean here. I don't have an official pick, but I'm curious your thoughts first.
I feel like this is a much easier selection than Rookie of the Year and our next picks that we will eventually be talking about, at least from my perspective. I think that most fans, most pundits, most analysts, most of the you and I's in this world will be saying that Mr. Victor Wembanyama in San Antonio will be the Defensive Player of the Year. That is who I'm selecting, and I feel like it's not a runaway. Of course, there are other guys that are going to be in contention for that, but I feel like that's a pretty safe selection as Defensive Player of the Year. We saw what he did last year. We saw guards on fast breaks think about going for a layup or think about going for a dunk and running away from Victor Wembanyama when they realized that he was in the paint, which is an insane thing to watch as an NBA fan. So I think that his growth, putting on muscle, being around, though a point guard with Chris Paul, I feel like that will eventually, in some way, help his defensive prowess. And I feel like he's going to make a huge step this year, definitely on the defensive side of the ball. And I think it'd be hard pressed to not think that a guy like Wembanyama will be at worst in the top 3 conversation like he was last season for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, yeah. Wemby is the favorite. He's by far the favorite. He's a minus 155 for Defensive Player of the Year, which for a future bet is pretty ridiculous. He was in the conversation last year. Rudy Gobert obviously won it. The thing with Rudy is, like, I think for Rudy to win it again, he has 4, by the way. He has 4 Players of the Year. For him to win it again, I think he'd have to average 10 blocks a game. Like, I think people hate that guy. And I'm to the point where I'm starting to feel a little bad for him. I think the hate's gotten a little tilted towards, like, people have been listening a little too much to Draymond Green, talk about Rudy Gobert. And I think it's getting a little out of hand, this discourse around Rudy. He's an NBA player. He happened to get benched for Team France, which wasn't a great look. He gets exploited every year in the playoffs. He looks goofy. He's annoying. He's French, which doesn't help. I think he still is a contributor. I think he's a contributor to a good team. I think actually he'll be a lot better without Cat on the Timberwolves. I still think he'll be a valuable asset. But Mickey, me and you talked about this before the podcast. Defensive Player of the Year pretty much just goes to the tallest dude who defends the rim the best. It's a flawed award, of course, other than when Marcus Smart, as a Celtic, won it a few years back. Questionable. I will say I didn't have a platform at the time. I did bet that, and I won. So,
of course,
the vibes were my own horn.
Correctly navigated back then.
The vibe, even before I had a public platform like this, I still was navigating vibes. I think Wemby's a great look at that one. I think Bam Adebayo is a sneaky one that I don't hate. Plus 1100 if you're trying to go for like a little bit of a reach. Bam does not have a Rookie of the Year award, which also can go into these narrative-based awards. Have you won one before? I think the Heat, at least the way they're talking, I think are going to be a little better this year in the regular season. I think they might take it a little more seriously. And I think Bam's a really versatile defensive player. I think he has an argument to being actually the best defensive player in the league, not just the tallest dude who defends the rim. So I don't have an official pick. If I was going to make a pick, I'd lean Bam just for the value at plus 1100 because everyone is just slurping the Victor Wembanyama Kool-Aid. There's like absolutely no value attached to anything to do with Wemby anymore. But yeah, I mean, Wemby, this might just be the year of Wemby. We're going to get to him a little later, Mickey. I have a pick that is associated with Mr. Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs.
I know. But I'm speaking on behalf of all of our audience saying we're very much looking forward to it.
The year of Wemby might be upon us. Our podcast producer, Ari Podcasts, he told us before this podcast that we got to keep it moving. I can already see in his face he's getting annoyed. He's annoying me just by how he's looking. So we're going to rifle through these lists. Next award, Mickey, Sixth Man of the Year. Do you have a lean here, or do you care to guess who the favorite is for Sixth Man of the Year?
Yes, I have a lean, and I think that this lean is the favorite. Dante DiVincenzo is my guess, as that he's the favorite. Is that correct?
Not the favorite. He is not the favorite, but I like that pick. What do you like about Mr. Dante?
That is my pick, I think, and I'm going to use this phrase later on in this podcast for a different individual on a different team, but I think that Dante DiVincenzo is going to be on a revenge tour this season. I think he's going to come out swinging, guns ablaze from game one, from opening night, okay? I really like how he played towards the end of last year. I like his game in general before he really was on a national primetime scale in the playoffs when the games really, really mattered for the Knicks. But I like his game, and I like how he can be applied to this Minnesota Timberwolves team. I think that he can start on a lot of NBA teams, and I think that he is going to have kind of an effect like my favorite basketball player of all time, which I've not said yet on this podcast, which is Manu Ginobili from the San Antonio Spurs. I think that, again, a guy like Manu, he could have started on pretty much any team, but his value was best used off the bench. So I think a guy like Dante is going to be an absolute spark plug in the second unit. Not to relieve Anthony Edwards of his duties or anything like that, but to kind of reinvigorate the offense. And I think that kind of like Manu, kind of like J.R. Smith, kind of like, all these other super valuable six men, Lou Williams, I feel like not only are they going to kind of reinvigorate the offense in the first quarter, but they'll also be guys that will end up in their closing lineup of fourth quarters. So I feel like Dante is going to have a lot of valuable minutes in the closing, let's say 6 minutes of games, considering they're close, even though he's not going to be starting. So I think I'm looking forward to watching him this year, and I think that he is going to be genuinely in the running for it.
Okay. I love that pick. My only reservation is actually to your point when you say he could start on a lot of teams. I actually think he may end up starting on this team. I think there's a world in which he makes his way into the starting lineup. I think he's really good, and I think they're going to need his shooting. So I think I don't know if they'll be able to afford keeping him off the floor. If he stays on the bench, but kind of plays, like you said, kind of the Manu Ginobili role where he's technically coming off the bench but playing starter minutes, I think he's got it kind of locked up. But I think he's really good. And their other guards is like, it's 55-year-old Mike Conley. Like, I think they're going to need his energy, his shooting, his defense. And he's pissed off. Like, we saw him chirping at the Knicks bench during that preseason game. I think he's a little pissed off that they traded him. I think he was happy where he was. He's a little pissed off that they broke up the Nova boys, but him and Edwards as a starting backcourt, like, I kind of love that. So I like that pick a lot. The favorite, by the way, is Malik Monk at plus 650. Who I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Malik Monk. I don't have a strong lean for this one. The other top three, the third favorite for 6 man of the year is actually another Timberwolf. It's Naz Reid. He's another guy who I could see also starting. This Timberwolves team is weird. They have a lot of dudes that I really like. That now that the Cat situation is gone, I'm curious how they rework that lineup, because there's times where I looked at Naz Reid and I asked, he might just be better than Cat. Like, I really like Naz Reid. I'm just worried about either of those dudes actually staying on the bench because that's how good they are. Another guy, Jaime Jaquez, Karis LeVert, those are guys in the top 5. Not sure how I feel about that. If I was going to make a pick, Mickey, I don't feel strongly about this either way. I don't hate Caruso at plus 1,600 on the Thunder. A lot of times with this award, it's also who averages the most points, though, and Caruso's not really like a fill the stat sheet guy. He's a glue guy. And I think Dante, plus 1,500 is probably a pretty good value because he's going to put up some numbers if he can stay on the bench. All right, Mickey. Last like realish award we're going to touch on.
Before we go to it, I'm sorry, real quick, not to interrupt, but I do want to say I completely agree and understand, and potentially may in the future switch my I have the same reservations as you do regarding picking six man and Dante, because I was also thinking the same thing. He's got too much talent. Maybe they're just gonna be forced to put him in. I'm glad that you said who the number one, the guy who has the number one odds are, because my second pick, if I were to make one, is Malik Monk. Previous pod, I was super high on the Sacramento Kings, and that may or may not come up later in this podcast, but I'm high on the Kings, and Malik Monk is a reason why I'm high on the Kings. He's not the only reason, but he's one of them. So I really like to see how Malik plays this year, and I definitely think that he has a lot of value being up there in the conversation of being six man.
I like that. You're a little higher on the Kings than I am. We'll touch on that. I think when I think you're going to have another pick associated with them. Most improved player, Mickey. This is like kind of a real one. I don't have an official pick for this either. Would you care to guess the favorite for most improved?
Maybe Chet Holmgren? Maybe he's got to be somewhere on the list.
He's on the list. He's further down, though. He's a long shot. He's plus 5,000. The favorite is Mr. Victor Wembanyama, which I'd be pretty surprised if they gave that. It's just everyone's slurping Wemby, which I understand. I'm slurping Wemby, too. Wembanyama's plus 650. Just addition to the Chicago Bulls, Josh Giddey is second in the betting odds at plus 1,000. Then Jalen Williams at plus 1,100 on the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is one. It's weird because you kind of, to win this award, you can't be too good. Like, because Wemby was amazing last year. So then if he's improving, like, what is the definition of improving? How good can you have been the year before that to win this award? Typically for me, it's a guy who's like kind of nobody and then turns into something that's real. Like, to me, Kobe White last year is an example of that. I think that's to me who like the most improved award is built around. I don't love the idea of giving it to someone who's like an all-star level player the year before. Some guys I'm looking at, so value wise, Mickey, I'm looking at a Mr. Jalen Johnson over on the Hawks. Now, the average person, I think, our casual Mr. Ari podcast, I bet he doesn't even know who Jalen Johnson is. Ari podcast, do you know who Jalen Johnson is?
Who?
Exactly. Now turn off your mic, please. Thank you, sir. So yeah, so that's our contribution from Ari podcast. He might talk again a little later, but no, he doesn't know who he is. No one knows who he is. He's 6'8". He's athletic. He's strong. He jumps through the gym. Like, that dude's really good. And with DeJounte Murray out, I think they're going to need another kind of guy to step up a little bit. And I see him put up some numbers. Like, that dude's just like a really good player, and way more than just like a 3-and-D dude. Some of the dunks, like some of the best dunks of the year last year were Jalen Johnson, former Dookie. Most guys don't even know who this guy is. Mickey, what do you think about Mr. Jalen Johnson? And do you have a lean for most improved player?
Yes, I do. But first, Jalen Johnson. I think that's a really good pick, actually. He crossed my mind. I didn't select him as my official lean, but I think you touched on it. I feel like he's in a really good environment for him as a player to succeed. Again, I don't know how that will translate to the overall team success in Atlanta, but him with Murray being gone, they're going to need someone to kind of provide that athleticism that Murray did, kind of that kind of duo to Trey's shooting, to Trey's dishing, to Trey's lobbing, etc. And I think that Jalen Johnson definitely has the possibility to bring that and will secure this potential award. Now, my official lean. You mentioned this team earlier in terms of doing big things this year, the Miami Heat. And I think this kind of goes in line with you saying you don't want to pick a guy that's already kind of known, already kind of plays a big impact on his team. My lean will be Jaime Jaquez Jr. on the Miami Heat.
Juan Wick.
Yes, genuinely Juan Wick. I love watching him play. I love that dude. I love watching him in college. I really like his game. And I think Miami is going to be Miami again. We've talked about Miami before, and I think they're going to take this regular season a little bit more seriously than they have in the past. I think Jimmy, again, revenge tour. He showed up serious on media day. No wacky hair, no playing dress up, none of that. He's coming, and I think he's trying to take names this year, and I think he's going to need someone to help him do it, and it's going to be Jaime Jaquez. Martin's gone, right? All these other dudes, Vincent gone from the Heat's run 2 years ago. They're going to need someone to step up, and I think a big part of that offense is going to be Jaime, being kind of physical down low, taking mid-range jumpers, taking people to the cup. I feel like he's got a lot of aspects to the game that he can really apply to Miami Heat being a great team. And I'm really liking him taking this role this year of taking a huge leap to propel himself into the conversation that I think he can be a part of.
I don't hate that at all. I like that pick. I think the Heat are going to need him to have a big year. If they have, if they want to live up to the aspirations that they claim to have. Jaime Jaquez plus 6,000. So that's really good value, Mickey. That's a nice little long shot right there.
I like it.
I don't hate that.
I like
don't
it.
hate that at all. I don't hate that at all. I'm not going to officially pick that because also this is kind of a stupid award. We have to do our due diligence, Mickey. We have to talk about these things.
We got to cross our T's and dot our I's, guys. Exactly. This is what we got to do.
Exactly. And I'm not going to put my fake money behind that. My fake units are not going into this award. I'm only doing one official pick for the awards, and it's Mr. Zachary Rissache. All right? I'll be wearing my French beret, eating French cheese, watching the Hawks, living it up. Mr. Rissache, Mr. Jalen Johnson.
Don't forget a baguette.
The baguette, watching them stand in the corner while Trae Young dribbles for 20 seconds of the shot clock and doesn't pass to them. I'm gonna hate myself by the end of the season, I'm sure. Mickey, I guess there's one more award that we wanted to touch on, isn't there?
Sure. Do you want to do the intro to that one?
Yeah. So for the listeners, we have a podcast producer, and he just really wants airtime, and he wanted to talk about this award. It's the Clutch Player of it's the Clutch Player of the Year. Maybe the dumbest award that exists in professional sports. Ari podcast wanted to talk about it, so I guess the floor is yours.
Yeah, it's all fear, man. It's all fear. Similar to the Vibe Navigator, I grew up outside of Boston. I'm a Celtics fan. I should be celebrating right now. Tomorrow is supposed to be like this great night where we reflect on Banner 18 and we reflect on last year, and all I feel is fear. And who I want to pick here is another Miami Heat plus 6,000 pick in the bad man down south,
Say it.
Jimmy Butler,
Say it.
who has already
Yes.
been discussed
Yeah.
today. But if I'm
Let's go.
if I'm truthful with myself, I think that when he breaks my heart, it's going to be in the playoffs. I think the regular season stud, another guy in the East who terrorizes my dreams, Giannis at plus 3,500. I think that's locking in.
Ooh.
Thanks for having me,
Okay.
guys.
Giannis.
Greek Freak.
Yeah, you can go now, Ari. Thank you for that.
I like
Greek
it, Ari.
Freak. Yeah, you like that, Mickey?
As a Greek, I got to support it. I support it, Ari.
All right. Questionable the clutch play of the year. I don't do you associate Giannis with being clutch like end of game?
Oh, no. He's not going to win that at all. Absolutely not. There's a 0% chance. I'm supporting it based off of the culture, the lore, off of Ari's selection. I want to get him involved, and I'm glad we got him involved. So on that aspect alone, that's a point for Team Ari in my book. Do I actually think he's going to win? Hell no. Hell no.
Okay, good. I'm glad we're on the same page. Yeah, I don't see that at all. I'm looking at. I could see Jalen Brunson plus 1,100. But the favorite is the person who won it last year, I believe, is Steph Curry, up also plus 1,100. There's 4 dudes all tied at the top. It's Steph, SGA, Luka, and Brunson, all at plus 1,100. Just because those are the dudes who are definitely gonna have the ball in their hands at the end of games and going to be probably in the most clutch opportunities to score. If I had to pick a longer shot, I mean, De'Aaron Fox, I love what he does at the end of games at controlling the pace, getting to the rim. But the problem is, Mickey, is your boy is now in Sacramento and Mr. DeMar
Correct.
DeRozan. So
yeah, I think it's going to be in DeMar's hands, and I think we both know that.
Yeah, I think you're right. So maybe that's a good pick. He's a plus 2,500, so I don't hate that pick as well. Again,
should have won
I'm not
last year.
putting my faith-
Should have won last
I'm
year.
not- Yep. Again, your journalistic integrity. We're always striving for that. Go Bulls. I think I'm not putting my fake units on this stupid award. If I had to make a pick, you know what? Screw it, Mickey. I'm going Anthony Edwards at plus 1,500, and I don't care who knows it. I love that man. And you want to talk about vibes? He has all of them, and he continues to show it in that Netflix show. I'm just picking it based off of vibes, but it's not official. Don't hold me to it. Doesn't matter. Let's get back to some official picks, Mickey. I have some thoughts. Let's look at some win totals, shall we?
We shall. Why don't you start us off with what you got in the win total?
Okay, so listen up, folks. I have 3 win total picks, 3 official win total picks. I am putting 3 fake units on all of them. Okay, and we're going to keep track of these. Throughout the entire year, we're going to keep track of how the Vibe Navigators units are doing, no matter how good and no matter how bad it goes. We're going to go for win totals. I am looking at the San Antonio Spurs, Mickey, and I have some stuff prepped for this. I did
Why
some
don't the floor is yours, and we're just going to listen. Tell us about
I did
it.
some homework. I did some homework about or pertaining to a Mr. Victor Wembanyama. And the Spurs win total. Do you know how many games the Spurs won last year, Mickey?
Wasn't it in the low mid 20s?
Correct.
22?
22 games.
Nice.
Do you know what their over-under is this year?
39.
35 and a half.
35
so that's
and
a
a half.
13 and a half game increase for the Spurs. 13 and a half games better. That's where the over-under is set. So you know what I did as a historian of the league, Mickey? I went in through the history books. I went on Basketball Reference. I used Chat GPT. I looked at other all-time great big men. And just to see how their teams improved from their rookie season to their second year. Just to give us some context into, what is the precedent for an all-time great big man in his second year in terms of wins. Do you know the largest increase in wins from rookie season to sophomore year was?
Specifically with a big man?
With an all-time great big man, what do you think the largest jump in win totals was from rookie year to sophomore year?
9 wins.
10. Almost nailed it, Mickey. Do you care to guess who that was?
Shaquille O'Neal.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. At the time, Lou Alcindor. Rookie year, the Milwaukee Bucks went 56-26. Second year, went 66-16 and won the NBA title, Mickey.
Yeah, it's a big leap.
That's huge. And there's some context there, Mickey. Do you care to guess who they added in between those 2 seasons?
I'm going to guess a veteran point guard.
Oscar freaking Robertson. The Big O. You know the guy who averaged a triple-double? You know that guy?
I do.
That guy was pretty good. Hall of Famer, arguably the greatest point guard of all time. Won a championship. And even that team only improved by 10 wins. I look at some other greats. Will Chamberlain, rookie year, 49-26. Second year, lost 3 more games, went 46-33. David Robinson, rookie year, 56-26. Second year, 55-27. Shaq improved by 9 wins. Patrick Ewing improved by 1 win. Hakeem improved by 3 wins. Moses Malone, ABA, 38-46. Second year, 35-49. Lost 3 more games. Bill Russell, the winningest big man ever. 44-28 rookie year, 49-23. I'll give you one current guy just for the sake of it. Nikola Jokic, 33-49 his rookie year, 40-42. You know what all those guys have in common, Mickey? None of them improved by 13 games. So you know what I'm doing, Mickey? I'm hammering the under. Lock it down. 3 units, Spurs under 35.5. 3 units on it. What do you think about that?
I actually love that. And I think the best part about that is it's not just, hey, this is just a gut. I love the vibes, and normally I'm all in. Checks and balances on the vibes. I'm all in. Whatever your vibes are, my vibes are. But this, you have data. You have research. You did your homework. You talked to a chatbot. You went on Basketball Reference, one of the best websites that we have access to, especially you and I in our current profession here. This is beautiful. I'm all in. I love the data, and everything points to absolute under. 3 units. I like it.
Thank you. That's my pick. That's I probably feel the best about that pick out of all my picks. Just because I think that's absolutely ridiculous to think that they're going to improve by 13.5 wins. Mickey, you got any over-under thoughts for us?
Yes, I do. Other than agreeing with yours, I'm going to pitch you mine. We talked about this team previously, and I feel like a lot of people are. They have every reason to be in the major headlines, and they're going to continue to be over the course of the season. But I'm going to pick the Los Angeles Lakers over. They're currently at 42.5, and I'm going to go over. I think that 2 huge things are going on. 3 huge things are going on in LA. One, the obvious, you have JJ Redick. I've formally announced here on Dishing and Swishing that I'm a fan of JJ. I support JJ as a podcaster, as a announcer, as a color analyst, and as a coach. I think he's going to do big things in LA, things that Darvin Ham couldn't do, and previous coaches that LeBron has had in his regime. Anthony Davis coming off of one of the, if not the best years of his career, certainly probably his best statistical Laker year. And thirdly, LeBron coming off a wonderful, wonderful Olympic run where he feels very rejuvenated. It seems like his game has just got just a spark plug in it. He's come out and said that he believes that he's got many more years left. So I think that he's going to ride that wave into the season, and I think that they're going to be better than people think that they will. I think that the over-under is appropriately placed at around 42.5, but I think with LeBron kind of riding this high, this endorphin, just proving people that he's still got it, that he can still do it, with Anthony Davis and a new coach, which I think is going to really maximize the role players and bench, I feel like they're going to prove people a little bit wrong this year. Going through them all, this one kind of jumped out at me a little bit because I felt that was appropriate, but maybe a little bit on the low side. So I'm going to take the Lakers over.
I hate that pick. I'm out. I'm so out on the Lakers, Mickey Swish. And I know I'm a Celtics fan, but listen. I think if you look at last season, Anthony Davis probably had his best season since the Pelican days. Played over 70 games. And LeBron was close to 70 games too. I just don't necessarily see that happening again. If you're going to tell me that LeBron and AD are both going to stay healthy for most of the season, then sure. I'm just waiting for the LeBron, sore calf, out 4 to 6 weeks. AD, rolls his ankle, getting off the bus, out, 2.5 months. Then it's the Austin Reeves show, Rui Hachimura show. Um, and I think JJ Redick's annoying. So I'm not a believer. I think there's growing pains ahead for them. I think they're entering the Kobe, farewell tour phase of the LeBron era. I think it's going to be a lot of circus with this Bronny thing. I think the Lakers number is usually inflated because they're such a public team. People want to bet on the Lakers. And it's LeBron James. And I think he's coming off a great Olympic year. I agree with you. The Olympics is 6 games. So if you're going to, if you want to tell me the Lakers are going to win the in-season tournament again, I could get behind that. But over the course of an 82-game season, I don't see it, Mickey. And I hate the Lakers. So that's my analysis for you. I don't see it. I think they're going to be a play-in team again. And I think LeBron and AD are going to come near that 82-game win or 82 games played. So I'm not nearly as optimistic. I think basketball is dead in Los Angeles, and I'm not even going to talk about that situation at the new arena with the team known as the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard already out indefinitely. So I think it's bleak times for basketball in Los Angeles. Thank God the Dodgers are good. Dodgers in the World Series. But yeah, I'm out. And you know what? We're allowed to disagree. Is that an official pick for you? The Lakers over?
I wouldn't say official, no. And I think that you make an
I talked
excellent
you out
point.
of it.
I would say more so lean than an official pick because I agree with you. It is hard to repeat with what we saw with LeBron and AD in terms of their consistency, in terms of the health that they had, in terms of the production that they have. Doing that twice, especially for those guys at this team at their age, is certainly going to be harder than just having a one-off year like they did last year. I do think that we will see a regression. I think the value or the trust in my pick primarily relies in JJ. I know we don't maybe stand in the same. I also think he's annoying sometimes as he talks because I think that he knows a lot but thinks he knows more than he
He
knows.
went to Duke. They're
Exactly.
always annoying.
Exactly. People don't like Duke. Whatever it is, if you're not from Duke, you don't like people from Duke. So it is what it is. And I do think, even though I'm a fan, he still falls in that category, even for someone like myself, who, again, is a fan of his. But that being said, I think you're right. It's just 6 games in the Olympics. I'm not saying LeBron did, a tour for multiple games in a overseas league in the offseason. But I think the fact that he proved that in those superstars or against the superstars playing on his team and against from different countries, that he was the engine on that team, still proves that he's got a lot in the tank. And I think that he realizes that farewell tour that you mentioned regarding Kobe is very, 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 very close, if not already started. And I feel like he's got maybe 1, maybe 2 years before he's officially on that tour to prove that he's got maybe 1 chance, maybe 2, to get 1 more title. Do I think they're going to win the title this year? No. But I think that he's got to prove to himself, and I think that that's going to result, according to in accordance with JJ's savantness, just over, not by a lot, but just over the win total.
Just over. Okay. And it's a regular season win total. I'm not holding you to a title pick, but we'll keep track of the Los Angeles Lakers as we go. I like monitoring that situation, that dumpster fire over in Los Angeles ever since their bubble title that I guess counts. I guess we'll count it. But if you want to be real, like it's, they say 17. One of them's a bubble title, and 4 of them were in Minneapolis. So
Stop it. The Boston in you is talking.
I'm not a math genius, but that seems like a lot less than 18. But anyway, I digress. I have 2 more win totals for you, Mickey. I'm just going to do them both for the sake of time.
Sure.
I'm looking at 2 overs in the Western Conference. And it's funny you say the Lakers are at 42.5. There's another team in the West that I haven't heard a ton about. The Houston Rockets, Mickey, 42.5. I'm throwing 3 units on it. I like this team. And I think the fact that they have the same win total as the Lakers is actually disrespectful to them. I don't know if you remember a certain Mr. Ime Udoka, who was, had some controversy in his last stop as a coach.
Just a little.
But I'm a Celtics fan, and we know this. Watching what he did in Boston, it's been fun to watch him coach in Houston and see him similarly with that scowl on his face and cussing out his players and questioning their manhood and challenging them. And I think his coaching style works surprisingly, and I think he's got a lot of young guys who believe in him, and I think they have a very talented team. I still think they have some kinks to work out, but I think if you look at the talent on that roster, and the Jalen Green and the Şengün, Tate, even with Reed Shepherd coming off the bench, Fred Van Vliet, like I think Dylan Brooks, like I think that team is good. I think for them to be just over 500, like I like that. I actually could see them being a top 6 seed in the West. I think Ime Udoka is a really good coach. And I think it takes a little bit of time, as we saw with the Celtics, for teams to get adjusted to that. But I believe in it. So I'm going 42.5 over. We're going 3 units, Mickey. All these overs, we're going 3 units. 3 units over 42.5. My next team. We talked about this team already, Mickey. Not today, but in an earlier podcast. And I'm deciding that I believe that this is a year that Kevin Durant returns to prominence in the Phoenix Suns under the tutelage of Mike Budenholzer. I think they have a bounce back season after just an absolutely humiliating end to their season last year. I think over under 48.5 wins, 3 units on it. I think that team wins 50 wins comfortably. Mike Budenholzer may have issues in the playoffs in certain matchups, but that dude knows how to just stack up regular season wins. They're going to bomb a bunch of threes. Kevin Durant, I think it's make or break for him. He hasn't had a meaningful basketball moment since his foot was on the line against the Bucks. I think Devin Booker is a stud. I don't even think Durant needs to be the best player on this team. That's how good I think Devin Booker is. And I think they comfortably surpass this 40.5 win total. So those are my 3. My 3 official over-unders, Mickey, as we discussed. Spurs under 35.5. Houston Rockets over 42.5. Phoenix Suns over 48.5. 3 units on all of them. What do you think?
The pick I like the most there is your Houston Rockets over. I'm a
Oh,
little worried regarding Budenholzer on the Suns. Not that I don't trust the talent on the team. I don't know if I trust him as a coach. I agree that in the past he's proven to have some success in the regular season. In the playoffs is maybe where he makes his errors and slips up. But I don't know. I don't know if I agree with you in terms of what Devin Booker can do, and how Kevin Durant kind of needs to put himself back on the map in terms of having a good headline, other than having a big foot on the line, to kind of retain his legacy in this premier player, which we all know he still is. But I don't know. I don't know if I think that'll be really close. I'm actually really glad that we're doing this now, as we've talked about before the season starts, to kind of get this on the record, to kind of check in over the course of the season, especially at the end of the season. So I like that pick. I don't love it, but I do really like the Houston Rockets pick. I think that's very wise. I think it's going to take a little bit of time for these different pieces that you've mentioned to kind of figure out how to play together. But if they figure that out sooner rather than later, I definitely think that over is without question. Again, only concern there. I trust Ime. I like him as a coach. I like what he can do. If they just figure out how to work as a system, and it's not just like this kind of reckless one ball trying to figure out how to mesh. If that's an issue, maybe a different conversation. But if they figure that out, I take the over 2.
love it. Love it. You got one more over for us or under?
I do, and I'm going to touch on this very quickly for time's sake, because we'll be talking about this team a little bit later. I'm going to take the over for the Dallas Mavericks, who are currently at 49.5. I know this may or may not be an obvious one, but previously I've said that I'm a big fan of the Mavs, just in terms of how I really like their team, like their talent, and I like their chances. So we're going to be talking about them a little bit later, but I really like what the Mavs have on their roster, and I trust that I'm going to say it again. Someone on their team, who I'll be talking about later, will be on a revenge tour this year. I'm looking forward to seeing how their wins stack up this year. So I'm going to take the over on that one.
Okay, I think I know who you're talking about, and it's tough to have a revenge tour without an Achilles or an ACL. But maybe he will. Who's to say? I'm just a viewer, and I'm not rooting against him. I need to see it. Jury's still out for me. Mickey, I have one more. You know, it's a regular season related award. Let's look at the NBA Cup, Mickey. For those of you who don't know, that is our in-season tournament of the NBA. It's called the NBA Cup, which I think is a stupid name. But I'm taking a look at some of these odds. And Mickey, as I've teased in earlier episodes, I have a pick, and it's an official pick. The Tom Thibodeau-led New York Knickerbockers at plus 1,100, a steal. It should be minus 500 for them to win this tournament. There's no team that's going to care more. Tom Thibodeau's going to play Mikal Bridges 48 minutes a game during these NBA Cup games. It's going to be they're going to be walking to the final at the very least. They're going to care the absolute most. The only team that might care more than them is LeBron and the Lakers, because LeBron just wants to stack up more accolades that Michael Jordan can't. So, LeBron will be able to say back-to-back NBA Cup champion in his resume against Jordan, who didn't have a chance to play in those.
That's so
Watch
funny.
out. I'm eyeing a Knicks Lakers in-season tournament final. I got the Knicks taking it all, though. Plus 1,100, that's great value. We're putting one unit, officially, New York Knickerbockers, plus 1,100 to win the NBA Cup. What do you think of that?
I think that's a really good pick, and I think that your main premise in terms of I can't think of a team that would care more about it is the reason why I also like the Knicks. I'm going to offer, this is not an official pick or a lean, but one team that kind of crosses my mind under that framework of can I think of a team that may want it more? The Minnesota Timberwolves. I can see Anthony Edwards being just trying to spearhead that as much as possible to ride this wave of vibes that he's projecting from last year's playoffs, the show on Netflix. I feel like he's going to be a dog and really want it this year, and I see him going for that.
Plus 1,200 for the Timberwolves, so just below the Knicks for odds for the NBA Cup. So that'll be a fun thing to look at. We can, kind of look. That's all those games take place early on in the season, so that'll be a fun little thing to monitor as we look ahead. I think, Mickey, it's time for us to, take a moment to talk about who we actually think is going to be matched up at the end of the year in the finals. What do you think about that?
I think that's the best part of the episode. So thank you to you and all who have listened so far, because now is the meat and potatoes.
It's time.
It's time.
I promise this will not be colored with any bias. Again, we aspire towards journalistic integrity here. At least Mickey does. I have picks. Mickey, I'd like you to start if you are ready to go.
Sure. I'll gladly take the wheel here. I'm going to start in the Eastern Conference, and I'm going to say first my matchup, and then who I think is going to win the matchup. I think that the Eastern Conference Finals will be the Boston Celtics against the New York Knicks, and I think the winner will be the New York Knicks.
Oh, he did it. I knew he was going to do it.
Now,
I knew he was going to do it.
Here's my thought process here. Previously on this show, thank you to those who can recall this, I have said outwardly, and I still believe this, that I don't know if I trust the New York Knicks with Cat specifically in New York.
Very vocally anti-Cat, Mickey.
Very vocally anti-Cat, and I do believe that. Here's the rub, though. I'm really high on Jalen Brunson, and I really like his progression from the 2 years ago to last year, and I'm expecting something similar from last year to this year. So I think that Cat is going to be Cat, and I think that he's going to get a lot of hate, and I think a lot of it's going to be deserved. But I think Tibbs, the Nova boys, and Brunson are going to drag that team to the conference finals, and I think in a game 7, in a game 6 or a game 7, they're going to pull through. And here's why I'm not as high on the Celtics. I think that let me put it this way. I would not be surprised at all if the Celtics won the conference and they made it to the finals. I would not be surprised at all. I'm assuming that they're the favorite to do so, and I'm maybe taking the underdog for the sake of taking the underdog. The reason why, outside of just thinking that the Knicks are just going to drag themselves there, is I feel like it's so much incredibly more difficult than people realize to make it twice back-to-back. And I think that we have been deluded to understand or to think that that is an expectation for teams to make it back-to-back. Think teams like the Heat, teams like the Lakers, early Lakers, later Lakers in the later 2000s, the Warriors with Steph Curry in that dynasty, the Spurs. I feel like we've seen that, and I feel like we are trying to train our brains to become accustomed to and expect it, and I think that's a mistake. And I don't think that this Celtics team, though very good and worthy of the championship this year, and again, very possible of winning it and making it to the finals again this year, I just don't know if they will be able to. They won it. Are they going to be as hungry? Does Jason Tatum have enough to prove? Does Jaylen Brown have enough to prove? Do they still have that dog in them? We see it time and time again. When they win, when you got the target on your back, it's different. Winning it once is easy. Winning it twice is way, way, way harder. So from that perspective, not that I don't trust the Celtics, I just think that the target on their back is going to be a little bit bigger for other teams that we've seen across sports, from the NFL to baseball to the NBA specifically. I feel like that's going to be a really, really steep hill for them to climb. Do I think they can do it? Yes, but I'm not going to guarantee it.
And you know what? I kind of knew that's where that was going anyway. I don't hate the Knicks. I don't trust them in the playoffs. I think Knick fans are. I think the playoffs, especially, that Karl Anthony Towns experience is going to be glaring. I like the Knicks. I think they're solid. I do not have them in my conference finals. I think they're going to win a lot of regular season games. I think my prediction is the Celtics are going to be the 1 seed handedly, and as a Celtics fan, my hope would be that the rest of the conference kind of cannibalizes itself in the playoffs. Here's my pick, Mickey. And we talked about fear earlier. Talked about our feelings.
I like where this is going.
And what keeps us up at night as Celtics fans. And I'm still traumatized. And I think I have even more reason to be scared as we look ahead into this season. The conference finals, Mickey, I'm telling you right now, the Miami Heat are going to be in the conference finals.
I love it.
It's going to be the Celtics versus the Heat in the conference finals. I have the Celtics winning. Again, uncolored by any bias. It's going to be Celtics Heat. I think the Heat, maybe they're a 6 seed, maybe they're a 5 seed, something along those lines. I trust them against Philly. I trust them against Milwaukee. I trust them against Cleveland. I trust them against Orlando. I trust them over New York. I trust Spo and Jimmy and Bam and all whoever they pick up off the street to hit 12 threes in a playoff game that I've never heard of before. It's going to be Celtics Heat, and the Celtics are going to make the finals. You heard it here first. That's what the vibes have calibrated. The Heat are back. Even if we're going to talk ourselves out of them again, Mickey. They're going to be 500 by All-Star break. Everyone's going to be like, they're done. They should blow it up. They should trade Jimmy. And then they're going to eke into the playoffs, and they're going to make the conference finals. It's just going to happen. And I don't, you know what? It's okay. As a Celtics fan, I think we need to exercise these demons. We beat them last year without Jimmy. It didn't feel right. I need him in a meaningful playoff game. I need us to slay that dragon to make the finals again. What do you think about that?
I absolutely love that pick, especially now that I'm going to say that between the Knicks and the Heat, it was kind of a toss-up for me between the two of them. I kind of thought that the Celtics were kind of a shoo-in to be one of the two teams in the conference finals, and for me, it was between the Knicks and the Heat. And we have agreed several times on this podcast so far that we're both huge fans of Jimmy, huge fans of the Heat. We trust.
Well, I'm not a fan of Jimmy. I'm not a fan of Jimmy.
Fan of the game of Jimmy. I know we taught you in your
hate
gym. He's the Slim Reaper to you. I get it. I understand. But I know you respect his game like I do.
I do.
Dude's a baller. He is him.
Yes.
So I will say that was a really tough call for me to choose the Knicks over the Heat. But again, this is in the category of I think any of those three teams can do it. I think any of those teams can get there. Any of those three teams can make it. I would also be terrified of the Heat if I was you, if I was a Boston Celtics fan. As a Bulls fan, I don't really have that much to be afraid of because I don't think we're going to be in that position to have anything to be afraid of in the first place. Right. But that being said, as a huge fan of Jimmy and of the Heat, the only reason why I didn't make them as my official pick is I feel like they're going to get burned out. I feel like they're going to do too well in the regular season. I feel like they're going to get too high of a seed, and I think that they're going to get slapped in the face too early, and they're not going to be able to recover from it. That is the only way that I think that they're going to have a great regular season, and I think they're going to get a little bit ahead of themselves. Normally, they kind of, as you said, kind of just barely get in, and then they slowly but very, very surely kick up the momentum, and they figure out how to push themselves through the playoffs. I actually think that may be backwards this year. I think they're going to get in too hot with too much heat, and they may peter out a little bit quickly. I don't, maybe as a fan, I hope that doesn't happen, but maybe the skeptic in me thinks that it might. So that's the only reason why I didn't pick them.
I don't hate that. And we're fairly aligned. The East is going to be interesting. We got a lot of new teams in there. I think, let's look at the West. Mickey, who do you have making the conference finals and winning the conference finals? And then why don't you go ahead and give me your prediction for who is going to be hoisting the Larry O'Brien trophy?
Sure. It'll be my pleasure. In the West, I have the Dallas Mavericks and the Minnesota Timberwolves. I have to go with the Mavs. Like I said earlier, when I was talking about the win total overall, I had to say, I was going to save it a little bit for later. I wrote down in my notes 2 sneaky teams to keep an eye of. I'm just going to slice this in real quick. I already mentioned one of them with the Miami Heat, because I also think that they can have a really good chance of getting there, like I mentioned earlier. But on the other side of the NBA, I'm going to say the Sacramento Kings. I don't think they're going to get there. I'm just going to do a sneaky plug for the Sacramento Kings right there. I think they're going to have a good seeding, but I think they get knocked out too early. Moving on to my actual prediction with the Dallas Mavericks. I think that the Mavs were really, really great last year, and I think everybody knows that. And I think that here's the best part. You ready for this? This is going to tie in so many things here. I'm gonna spoil this a little bit because now's the perfect opportunity because it all ties together. One of the best parts about comedy and storytelling is when you give them a premise and you think that they're going to expect something, but the joke is a curveball. It's misdirection. You think the revenge tour I was talking about was Klay Thompson, and it's not. The revenge tour is Luka Doncic. That's the revenge tour, not Klay. Right? I don't think Klay is going to be doing that great either, but I think he's going to be sufficient enough to help the team. The revenge tour that I think of is going to do three things. 1, get Dallas Mavericks over the win total. 2, get the Dallas Mavericks to the conference finals. And 3, I think Luka Doncic on a revenge tour will be the MVP this year. So I know we said we're going to save it to the end, but while we're talking about the Dallas Mavs, I see big things this year for the Dallas Mavericks. Big things this year. I love Kyrie. I love the addition of Klay. And I think Luka is going to be an absolute menace this year. I think he's got a lot to prove. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder. I think he's past the point of just this young phenom who everybody's marveled at. Everybody's like, wow, this is really a kid we got to keep our eye out on. He has had so much success, but he knows that to really get into the upper echelon of the NBA in the conversation of guys like Giannis and the upper tier of guys like maybe Jokic and guys of the older generation like guys like Steph, KD, and LeBron, he has to win it. He hasn't done it yet. He's come close, but he has not done it. So my pick to win the conference finals over the Wolves will be the Dallas Mavericks. And to beat the Knicks in the NBA finals will be the Dallas Mavericks. And the team of the NBA MVP winner will be Luka Doncic on the Dallas Mavericks. And my number 1 over for the win total will be the over for the Dallas Mavericks. So I am understanding I'm putting a lot of eggs in this basket right now. And today, on Monday, October 20th, all of this can come back to bite me in a couple weeks, couple months, and towards the end of the season. So I'm recognizing that and I'm admitting that openly right now. But as of now, to answer your question, conference finals, I got Mavs, Wolves. I love what Anthony Edwards is doing. I think he's going to pull them there. We saw what happened last year. I don't think they have enough talent. I don't think they have enough experience. And I think they're going to fizzle out. But I think the Mavs, fueled by a vet Kyrie and just a rampant Luka, will take this team to the conference finals and inevitably to the finals. And I think whether it's the Celtics or my pick, the Knicks, I think they may be hoisting the trophy come summertime.
Okay. Really going out on a limb there, picking the odds-on favorite for the MVP. I love it. Luka Doncic he's been the favorite for the MVP, I think, since his second year in the league, yet to win it. So this year will be as good as ever. I don't hate that pick as an MVP. I think in terms of the Western Conference, I think the Mavs are going to run out of gas. I think they ask a lot out of Luka, and I'm curious to see it. Like I've said, I'm not a Klay believer. Um, you know, some of their other auxiliary pieces, PJ Washington, and who's the big man? What's his name? Gafford. I think they plug in some holes. I'm into it. I don't see it though long term. My pick for the conference, I'm looking at the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Phoenix Suns, and I think it's going to be those two teams who are battling out for the 1 seed all year in the West. And I think the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to win the Western Conference, and the NBA Finals matchup is going to be the Boston Celtics versus the Thunder. And the winner of the NBA Finals, again, uncolored by any bias, is going to be the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Hey!
I have the Thunder. And again, It goes against my heart. The Thunder, they are my pick. I think SGA, I think all the pieces they've added, Hartenstein, Caruso, along with Jalen Williams and Chet, I think they're stacked. I think they're going to win a million regular season games, and I think it's their year. I think SGA is a stud, and I think he's a guy. We're going to talk about MVPs, Mickey. SGA is my MVP. So it's funny that, both
Great
of our
pick.
MVPs we have making the finals. It's almost like that makes sense. So SGA I have as my MVP. I know we didn't mention that earlier in the awards segment. Our kind producer pointed that out that we forgot to mention that. So let's do it now. Yeah, SGA is my MVP. But yeah, my finals pick. And this is, again, I'm not putting any units on this. There's no units on this because too much can happen. And I care about my units, Mickey. I care about my real units. I got to hold on to these units. It's a long season. I'm making weekly picks, and I can't get too low. But my pick is the Oklahoma City Thunder over the Boston Celtics. So, Mickey, this has been a long pod. We've talked about a lot.
Sure has.
You know what we haven't talked about?
Why don't you tell me?
We have games tomorrow, Mickey. Real life games. 2 games. One of which, the New York Knicks are going to my Boston Celtics, the TD Garden, and the Timberwolves are going to the Lakers. I have one pick. This is my first regular season pick of the 2024-2025 season. And I'm going over to Boston, and I'm looking at that line. Do you want to guess the spread, Mickey, for this Knicks-Celtics game? It's Knicks at Celtics on their ring night.
I'm going to assume it's a very, very small line. I'm going to say maybe -2.5 for Boston.
The Celtics are a -5.5 point favorite, Mickey.
All right, I wasn't that far off.
You were close. You were close. That seems a little high for me. And the in the historical context, ring nights, there's a lot of emotions. Teams, they got the championship team, they got other stuff on their mind that night. They're looking at the banner, our 18th banner, I might add. They're getting their big flashy rings, and the other team's coming in and they're pissed off that they have to be there for that ring night. And the Knicks are hungry. They're here. They're trying to make a statement. I think this game matters a lot more to the Knicks than it does the Celtics, and I think 5.5 is too many points. So my first official pick, Mickey, is the New York Knickerbockers plus 5.5 at Boston. I think Boston ekes out the win, but I think it's a close game, and I think we win down the stretch. But 5.5 points is way too many. My first official pick, 1 unit, plus 5.5, New York Knickerbockers. What do you think of that?
I think that's a very fair pick, and I think that kind of goes in line with what I was thinking in terms of it being a smaller line than what it currently is at. Because as you know, as you had mentioned, ring night normally isn't too favorable for the team that's supposed to be celebrating. We've seen that time and time in the past, and I kind of like where your head's at on this, being self-aware enough to recognize that that's very possible and that the Boston Celtics are infallible, or excuse me, are not infallible, and they, like any other team,
Mickey.
It has to be
integrity.
Hey, this is Dishing and Swishing, everybody, and that's the number one pillar, journalistic integrity, all right? So I like where your head's at. I support this pick, though I am not going to be making one myself. I think that is admirable to you understanding that, hey, we may get the ring ceremony, we may hoist a banner, we may do some claps and all that jazz, but we not be clapping at the end of the game. That's okay. It's all right, though. Many more games. 81 after tomorrow night. 81 more.
We get the last laugh because we get that banner up in the rafters. I still think we have a good chance to win that game. I just think 5.5 points is too many. All right, Mickey, we've been yapping way too much. We got games tomorrow. We're going to be back next week to recap the first week of games. Just to recap, Mickey, I think we should recap our official picks. I'm going to go through mine. You can say what yours were, what the picks that you actually want to put your name behind
Sure.
as we head into the season as official picks. These, again, folks, these are official picks. I'll tell you how many units I'm putting on them, and we're going to track these, and we're going to go through the season. I'm also going to be making weekly picks on games, and we're going to see how much money, how much fake money, how rich I make all of you by the end of the season. So, the Vibe Navigators official picks for the 2024-2025 season are as follow. Rookie of the Year, Zachary Risachet. Plus 750. We're calling 1 unit on that. Houston Rockets over 42.5 wins. 3 units on that one. Phoenix Suns over 48.5 wins. Another 3 units. San Antonio Spurs under under 35.5 wins. 3 units. That is my lock of all of these. Under, hammer it, put the house on it. I'm just kidding. Gamble responsibly. Knicks to win the NBA Cup plus 1100. We're going 1 unit on that. And our opening night pick, Knicks plus 5.5. 1 unit on that. Mickey?
I like all of those, and for the sake of yourself and our viewers, I hope this fake money accumulates very, very quickly and substantially by the end of the season. Very quickly going over mine. Rookie of the Year, Matas Buzelis. I would say that is an unofficial. As the next one, my most valuable player, Luka Doncic, is an absolutely official. I love this revenge tour idea. Defensive Player of the Year, Victor Wembanyama. Sixth Man of the Year, official, Dante DiVincenzo. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder, something to prove. Most Improved Player of the Year, Jaime Jaquez Jr. of the Miami Heat. Official pick, unofficial with the Lakers, 42.5. Official with the Mavericks, over 49.5. Those are my official picks for this upcoming season, the day before tip-off.
We did it, Mickey. Happy viewing, everyone. I think this concludes our pod. Last thing I'll say, Mickey, I have NBA basketball tickets for our lowly Washington Wizards this Thursday. Speaking of the Boston Celtics, they are the Wizards' home opener. So I'm going to go. I'm going to experience the bloodbath that is that game. I'm going to try and talk to some Wizards fans if there's anyone there. Get a sense of the vibes of the Wizards, potentially the new home of Cooper Flag next year. And I'm excited to report back in our next episode about a real-life basketball game. But folks, it's been real. Happy betting. Gamble responsibly. Feel free to tail me if you like money. And as always, we're brought to you by Orb Analytics. Thanks, Mickey.
Thank you, Vibe Navigator. Thank you, Ari Pod. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you've enjoyed listening to our content and this prediction for this upcoming season. Thank you all for listening to Dishing and Swishing. Looking forward to the opening week of the season and looking forward to talking to you guys soon. Enjoy basketball.
Bye, everyone.